NFL Week 11 is all but in the books, man, and it was a crazy week of NFL action. We saw some Super Bowl contenders cement themselves in that spot, some playoff races heat up, some career days, some NFL record setting days, and some dramatic losses. We're going to talk about it all in this video. As always, the timestamps are in the description below. And as always, we are starting with the Thursday night football game. The New England Patriots defeated the New York Jets 27-14. I have a longer form reaction to this already live on the channel, so we'll keep it short and sweet here, man. The New England Patriots, they moved to 9-2, and to me, they feel like serious Super Bowl threats in the AFC. And after the way that this weekend's NFL action played out, they're kind of the clear-cut best team in the AFC to me right now in terms of everything that I look for in a contender, plus what I've seen them actually put out on the field this season. Obviously, their 9-2 record is good enough right now for the #1 spot in the AFC, and they're leading their division. Drake May, to me, feels like by the end of the year, he'll be recognized as a top 10 quarterback in the league. Mike Vrabel is my current coach of the year. Their defensive line is fantastic. It's great at stopping the run. They have a top 5 corner in the game in Christian Gonzalez. And now back-to-back weeks of Travion Henderson putting it together and showing that he is an explosive weapon on this team. Stephon Diggs is really starting to find his way. And they've been without Kayshon Boutte the last couple weeks, who's been a really big part of this team. So everything that New England is putting together right now, yeah, they've had an easy schedule, but you got to beat who's in front of you. And they are putting up the kind of performances that a great team would put up against an easy schedule. 9-2, absolutely nothing to scoff at. And again, when you look around the AFC, they've been the definition of consistency. And at key positions like quarterback and head coach, you really start to believe that this Patriots team has the makings to go on a run this year, especially when you consider the AFC playoffs may be going through Foxborough. And for the Jets, man, when they sold house a couple of weeks ago, we kind of knew that they were playing for the future. They still have those 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years. They're certainly going to need them. The receiving room, pretty mid to ass at this point, if we're being honest. Adonai Mitchell dropping a couple of passes in that game. Justin Fields, just not a franchise quarterback. I said it in the video on Thursday. I'll say it again. I think after this season, Justin Fields will be better served in a Taysom Hill role somewhere. They're 2-8, and they're going nowhere fast. The Miami Dolphins pick up a win in Madrid, 16-13, in what was kind of a snooze fest of a game. Devon Achane is still just one of the best running backs in all of football. 21 carries for 120 yards, 5.7 per carry. He also had 45 yards through the air. Him and Jalen Waddle. Malik Washington gets a little bit more involved. Miami's been playing some pretty decent football as of late, if we're being honest about them. They've won 3 of their last 4, and I kind of think this stretch throughout the rest of the season will actually determine if the team goes forward with this Tua and Mike McDaniel combination into next season. I'm not going to say that I'm completely sold on it, but they've certainly been playing better ball as of late. And if they could build up that offensive line and build up that defense a little bit more through the draft and free agency this season, maybe Miami's got the potential to be a playoff team next year. I just don't know if I believe in Tua for the long haul, if I'm being completely honest. And I'm not sure how I feel about Mike McDaniel as a head coach. As an offensive coordinator, as a play caller, as an offensive mind, I think he's one of the best in the league. But, when it comes to being a head coach and being the head of a locker room, I'm just not sure if I fully believe in him for that. For the Commanders, what a disaster year, man. Coming off of an NFC championship, they lose again. They're now 3-8. It's like, is it even worth bringing Jaden Daniels back at this point? That injury that he had to his elbow didn't look like a 3-week injury to me. Their season is just about over at this point in time. Mariota did okay for a backup, but this Commanders team is just Daron Payne. He wasn't in this game. Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels, Marshawn Lattimore's out for the year. So it's just so much BS going on with the Washington Commanders right now. I thought that they'd be a fringe playoff team, maybe a playoff team this year. I didn't think that they were going to live up to the expectation of last year, but if you're a Commanders fan, this season just has to be an absolute failure and an absolute disaster. One of the best games of the day, the Buffalo Bills defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 44-32. The Bills move to 7-3. The Buccaneers fall to 6-4. That NFC South is getting pretty competitive out there. We'll talk about it when we talk about it, but we got to start with the Buffalo Bills, man. And the Buffalo Bills are becoming a team that it's just almost impossible for me to figure out, man, because in the last month, I've watched them handily beat the Buccaneers and handily beat the Chiefs. And I've also watched them get absolutely boat raced by Miami and get, a pretty good right hand punch from the Atlanta Falcons. And you're just left wondering, how the hell am I supposed to view this Buffalo Bills team? There's some high highs, there's some low lows when it comes to them. Josh Allen had a really solid day. He accounted for 6 total touchdowns. Yes, he had the 2 interceptions, but Josh Allen gave you an MVP level performance in this game. Over 350 all-purpose yards and 6 total touchdowns. Talk about backpacking a little bit. James Cook, he wasn't getting it super going on the ground in this game, but himself over 100 all-purpose yards and a touchdown. You saw a guy in Tyrell Shavers get going in the receiving game. Gabe Davis, Curtis Samuel, and Josh Palmer got open from time to time. So the offense looking a little bit better. And on the defensive side of the ball, you do have guys that have been making plays. Cole Bishop has been jumping off of the screen for the Buffalo Bills in the last month of action. But there are still some problems. They gave up 202 rushing yards in this game to a team that was without their primary back. Rashad White and Sean Tucker both averaged over 5 yards a carry. We're not going to just throw that out the window. That is something that's still concerning for Buffalo. And even though they're 7-3, I feel like their play hasn't consistently been good. What happens in this game if Josh Allen doesn't score 6 touchdowns for the Bills? Do they lose at home to Tampa Bay? It's certainly on the board, but at the end of the day, they also have Josh Allen. What if they didn't have Josh Allen? Well, they do have Josh Allen, and they are going to excel when Josh Allen excels because he's an freaking excellent football player. So Buffalo has become an increasingly confusing team for me. I'm not sure where I should be putting them on the Tuesday tier list. They've become one of the hardest teams to rank, and I'm really just going week to week with them at this point. But they absolutely needed to win this game. Otherwise, I thought that their playoff, not chances, but I guess chances is the word, started to dwindle. I wasn't going to bet against them if they lost this game, but things certainly would have gotten tougher. And then for Tampa Bay, man, the injuries are starting to catch up to them. They're just not able to compete with these high-level teams on their first place schedule anymore. They desperately miss Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in that receiving game because it feels like these teams are now starting to design to take away Emeka Egbuka and say, can you beat us with the likes of Sterling Shepard and Tez Johnson? If you can, cool. If not, we're going to win the football game. And I thought that, Tampa Bay and Baker and that offense did all that they could in this particular spot, but 32 points on the road in Buffalo isn't bad. It's just, you go up against the MVP of the league and his team hangs 40 on you. It's tough for anybody to win in that particular spot, but Tampa really needed that cushion because now they're tied with Carolina for this NFC South. And, I don't know what the timetable is for Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin's return, but all of a sudden next week, they play the Rams on Sunday Night Football. Carolina, by the end of week 12, could very well be in first place in the NFC South. And while there are some divisions like the NFC North that I didn't think were going to go the way that they've gone through 11 weeks, I don't know if anybody had the Panthers leading the NFC South through 12 weeks on their bingo card, but we may just be 1 week away from that. And speaking of that Panthers team, man, they got a win in Atlanta 30-27, showed some real toughness and fortitude in my opinion. And Bryce Young, this man absolutely balled and had the greatest game of his career thus far, and I don't think it's particularly close. 31-45, 448 passing yards. Bryce Young didn't have a game this year, I think, over 250. Maybe not even 200. He drops 448 passing yards on this Atlanta team. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 123.2 passer rating, 130 yards to Tedero McMillan and 2 touchdowns. A rookie wide receiver standout who I did have ranked as my #1 wide receiver in this class. Not that that was a crazy take at the time, but slight flex. 12 targets, getting real wide receiver one volume. Xavier Legette starting to find his way, their first round draft pick from 2 years ago, seen as more of an over-the-top guy. I think he's really fitting better into a wide receiver 2 role. Rico Dowdle gives you 100 yards in this game, all-purpose yards. Jalen Coker gets going a little bit. But Bryce Young and Dave Canales, the connection is starting to work, and the Panthers are 6-5. This is a team that legit can go to the playoffs this year, can win a division this year, and not that I'm picking them to go far, but they've got some attitude and moxie and toughness to them that they play quality ball for 4 quarters. They don't give up. Bryce is still developing. We saw them play Kansas City and Philly really tough in the second half of last year. After the first 2 weeks of this season, we were kind of like, that's a fluke. But ever since then, this Carolina Panthers team is starting to look like the team from last year in the second half of last year, but improved. Dave Canales, Bryce Young, I do think that they are building something there in Carolina. The defense hasn't been too bad. Moorig's been playing pretty solid. Same with Roseboom in this game. They didn't even get a sack in this game. So, you got J.C. Horn, one of the better corners in football, scoring their rookie. So I like what Carolina is building, man. And then you flip to the other side. Atlanta. Bijan Robinson is obviously fantastic. Drake London is obviously fantastic. I know he got hurt in this game, and I know his counting stats look cool. Michael Penix, I don't know if he's it. Similar to Bryce Young, maybe we shouldn't write him off in year 2. Talking about guys that were written off as well, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. So I don't want to be so quick to write off Michael Penix Jr. But there were a lot of people that were telling me I was crazy this year for having the Falcons miss the playoffs. Here we are. Atlanta is 3-7, and I think the most devastating part of this is that they don't have their first round pick this year. It would currently be the 8th pick in the draft, and it goes to the Los Angeles Rams, which is freaking terrifying. But the Falcons went all in on pass rush, traded back into the first round to get James Pierce Jr. after drafting Jalon Walker, trying to bolster that defense, and it just hasn't paid dividends. In this game, I mean, they had the 5 sacks. James Pierce Jr. got one of them, but it just didn't matter. Bryce Young was still able to toss the rock around. And for Atlanta, I could see a head coach firing this offseason. Not because I think Raheem is definitely the problem, but defensive head coach, Bryce Young has a career game against you. You're 3-7 in year 2. Michael Penix isn't exactly developing. I think there's going to be a shakeup in Atlanta, and I think it's well-deserved. The Houston Texans moved to 5-5, picking up a 16-13 victory over the 1-9 Tennessee Titans. Davis Mills was tasked with being the Texans quarterback again and to get them back to 500. He absolutely did that. And shout out the Texans, man. They were dealing with a laundry list of injuries. Davis Mills playing for CJ Stroud. Jalen Petrie wasn't in this game. They were missing some other key guys. And, Tennessee was coming off of a bye, extra time to prepare, had a first half lead. Houston didn't give up, kept playing good quality ball, and now they're 500. And they have the same record as the Baltimore Ravens, who they have the tiebreaker over, and they have the same record as the Kansas City Chiefs, who they still get to play later this year. So Houston is by no means out of this playoff race. To be fair, they're not even out of it necessarily for their division. They still play the Colts twice this year. If they sweep that division series, things could get pretty freaking interesting if we're being honest in Houston. Nico Collins has really gotten going the last couple weeks. Davis Mills says, hey, I'm going to be a backup quarterback. I'm going to come in. I'm going to throw the ball to 12. That's our wide receiver 1, and I'm going to trust the process. And I absolutely respect it. I think Nick Caley as an offensive coordinator has really started to find his way for the Houston Texans. That's helped him out big time. And statistically and on the eye test throughout the entirety of the NFL season, this has been the best defense in football. Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter have been absolutely wrecking havoc on defenses. Derek Stingley Jr. is a top 3 corner in football, I would say without a doubt about it. Guys like Lassiter, Bullock, Al-Shaair. It's a loaded unit. D'Amico Ryans coaches his guys hard, and they have that swarm mentality that they talk about, man. So I'm not counting out Houston, And this was a big win for them in division to get back to 5-5 and get to 500. The last 2 months of their season are going to determine a lot. For the Titans, man, 1-9. I thought Cam Ward looked better this game than he did the previous game against the Texans defense. Cam Ward started using his legs a little bit. He was kind of the only guy on Tennessee that could use his legs and rush. I mean, look at some of these numbers, man. Tony Pollard, 10 for 22. Tajay Spears, 4 for 3. Calvin Ridley breaks his fibula. He's out for the season. You got Chigun Kongwu, Van Jefferson, Kinsey, Gunnar Helm, DK. He got hurt in this game on a punt return, so he missed some time. Manire got hurt in this game. So, and we're talking about guys that I don't know would get playtime on many playoff teams getting hurt, and their backups are coming in. So what Cam Ward is working with is, dare I say, one of the worst supporting casts I can remember for a number one pick in a long time. I think it's very possible Tennessee is back picking number one in the draft, and they should probably trade out of that spot just to get a ton of draft capital from a team that needs a quarterback, because this roster needs an absolute overhaul, because I just don't even think it's fair to pass any assessment right now on Cam Ward. How on earth could you judge what this guy is doing when I get it, all these guys are in the NFL, but some of these guys that he's out there playing with could just as easily be in the CFL, and I don't think we'd bat an eye at it. The Chicago Bears, man, they are in first place in the NFC North. 11 weeks into the season, the Chicago Bears with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are in first place in the NFC North. And it took a gritty win to do it. It took another fourth quarter comeback, albeit it was a short comeback and it was a 1-point deficit, but they were down in the fourth quarter and they came back to win the game again. And it feels like that's just kind of what the Bears have been doing all season, man. Caleb wasn't exceptional in this game. I don't want to say Caleb was bad in this game, but I felt like Brian Flores did his job. I felt like the Vikings defense did their job. They gave Caleb Williams trouble. He didn't throw for a touchdown in this game. He had less than a 70 passer rating, under 200 yards, 50% completion percentage. He showed off the wheels a little bit. But what did Ben Johnson do, man? Ben Johnson does what Ben Johnson does. He relied on the run game. The run game was there, 140 rushing yards from the team in this game. He relied on playing quality football, trying to stay ahead of the sticks as much as possible. I didn't feel like the penalties were adding up for Chicago. The defense, to their credit, them and Dennis Allen, they did their job. They made J.J. McCarthy uncomfortable, and they won the turnover battle. And that was the real difference in this game. The Chicago Bears, it's not always pretty. And I know it's a little cliche, but they keep finding themselves in these close games, and you could tell that they feel comfortable in these spots. You can tell that when they're in them, the pressure doesn't faze them. When Chicago got that ball back, well, when Minnesota scored with about a minute to go, and all you knew that the Bears just needed a field goal to win this game, I felt comfortably like the Bears are going to figure out a way to at least get off a quality attempt. And Duvernay was huge on the kickoff return. You know what they say, all three phases of the game. It's true. And even though the stat sheet doesn't look crazy for anybody in this game, Chicago in an NFC North battle, on the road, tough defense, tough environment, left with a W, avenged the week 1 loss, and now sits atop the NFC North. They got a tough schedule the rest of the way, but they feel like a playoff team to me. I'll say it at that. And if they could win some of those divisional games, they got 1 more versus the Lions, could try and get revenge for that loss, and 2 more versus the Packers, Chicago could be hosting a playoff game. I won't rule that out. Minnesota. I think myself and many others underestimated what the jump from Sam Darnold to J.J. McCarthy would be. Because while there's clear potential with J.J. McCarthy, and I'll say this to be nice, that man clearly has a clutch gene in him. He clearly has a clutch gene in him. Because we saw it the first time these two teams played, where J.J. McCarthy went off in the fourth quarter. And in this fourth quarter, 2 touchdown drives. So there's clearly a bit of clutchness to J.J. McCarthy. However, there is clearly some young, inexperienced, not used to NFL ball, rookie struggles that J.J. McCarthy is going through. and they are hurting this Vikings team. And the big thing with the Minnesota Vikings and the big argument as to why they should have paid Sam Darnold and figured out a way to move on from JJ McCarthy was this season right here, where coming off of a 14-win year where you felt like you could be Super Bowl bound if you kept the core together, you instead go with a rookie who plays the most important position in the sport and dictates your whole offense, and it will drag you to losses. Because I firmly believe if they had Sam Darnold, they would have won this game. And I feel like if you went through the Viking schedule and picked out particular games, I think we could be looking at a different record this year. I will say that. It's not to be a hater on JJ McCarthy. It's just to be the reality of where they're at. Am I saying move off of him this season or off season? No. I think you got to let him grow. Because even though he's not a rookie and it's his sophomore year, he didn't play it all last year. So the rookie struggles are there. So, in a competitive NFC, I don't think the Vikings will be a playoff team. I think they can win on any given Sunday because of how strong the roster is. And if you could get a complete game out of McCarthy, shit'll change. And that's hopefully where they're at the end of the season, man. You look at the Panthers from last year, and not that this is an exact replica, but that last month and a half, 6 weeks of the season, you saw the spark. Hopefully for the Vikings, they see that with McCarthy. The Green Bay Packers go to MetLife and beat the New York Giants 27-20. I was told that I was crazy for picking the Giants to get the upset, and it was close, man. There was a lot of injuries in this game, I felt like. Jordan Love was hurt for a little while. Josh Jacobs was hurt, and I don't even know what his status is going forward. Listen, the Packers got a win, which is impressive enough. I still question the reliability of this offense. Christian Watson made some big plays. That one touchdown catch that he had kind of in the back right of the end zone near the sideline was beautiful. Great pass from Jordan Love as well. The Packers defense is obviously pretty solid. I think we all know that. And their strength on their team is defense. I still think without Tucker Kraft, there's a limit to how explosive this offense can be. And they didn't show me anything in this game to make me think otherwise. Now, Josh Jacobs getting hurt obviously changes the offense from two-dimensional with a strong running game aspect to Jordan Love, can you make enough plays for us to win the game? And to their credit, they hung in there, they battled, and they won when your quarterback and running back got hurt at different points of the game. Jameis came out playing with nothing to lose on the road. It was an easily losable trap game, and they didn't get trapped, man. The New York Giants, they fired Daboll. They're on to Jameis Winston. Tyrone Tracy and Singletary are playing. Dart was out with a concussion in this game. I don't know. There's just not a lot of analysis for Giants football at this point. You feel like when Dart's not playing, what's the point? And if you're a Giants fan, there's no what's the point. But in giving analysis on the team, at this point, the team's building for the future. It's nice to see Tyrone Tracy have a good game. He's probably going to be a part of that future. Same with Theo Johnson and Wan'Dale Robinson. But no Neighbors, no Scatterbo, no Jackson Dart. Kafka's probably not your head coach of the future. Tough to analyze this game. The Pittsburgh Steelers pick up a 34-12 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. 2 defensive touchdowns from the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game. Aaron Rodgers may have a broken wrist, a left wrist. Mason Rudolph came in. To be honest, played pretty good. Didn't really notice much of a difference in the offense. Not sure what that says about Mason Rudolph or what that says about Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career. Take it with what you want. Kenny Gainwell had a really solid game. They started using him as a receiving threat out of the backfield, and he was solid. Tough to really diagnose how good an offense is when they play the Cincinnati Bengals, because it feels like, hey, any competent NFL offense goes up against the Cincinnati Bengals, they're gonna have a pretty freaking good day. And it felt like Pittsburgh had a pretty freaking good day, man. The Jamar Chase, Jalen Ramsey exchange was insane. Jalen Ramsey gets ejected for throwing a punch. After the game, Jalen Ramsey claims Jamar Chase spit on him. Jamar Chase says, I didn't spit on him. The video comes out. Jamar Chase clearly spit on him. So as much as I hate to see a bet like Ramsey get thrown out of the game, On the other hand, you gonna let just somebody spit on you? Probably not. For the Bengals, man, they announced that Joe Burrow is going to try and come back. His expected return date is Thanksgiving night to make that Bengals Ravens game um, way more entertaining. And I hope that he does because again, the Bengals are just kind of a joke without him. But now they're 3-7. You would imagine they probably got to win out to make the playoffs. Maybe you could make it at 9-8. And Joe Burrow's not going to be back next week. And then I think they're going to be without Jamar Chase next week as well, because he's probably got a suspension coming and they play New England. So we're probably looking at a 3-8 Bengals team. That season is over. And if I said it once, I said it 1,000 times. The team construct just isn't good. And even with Burrow healthy, I don't think that this is a positive season for Cincinnati. Maybe they're a 5-5 team. Maybe they're a 4-6 team, but I don't think even with Burrow, this would have been a playoff squad. And what I found to be one of the weirder games of the week, the Los Angeles Chargers just get beat down by the Jacksonville Jaguars 35-6. The Jags, they got embarrassed by the Houston Texans a week ago. That 26-0 fourth quarter, a comeback victory from the Texans and Davis Mills. And you kind of were like, what is Jacksonville just going to roll over at this point to the Chargers? And they did the exact opposite. I thought that the Chargers defense was assuredly going to be the reason that they won this game. I am shocked at how well Jacksonville consistently ran the ball in this game. Their rushing attack was really solid, almost 200 rushing yards. Trevor Lawrence played a pretty decent game for Trevor Lawrence, and the Jags really just beat the crap out of the Chargers. Herbert had a bad game. That Jacksonville defense made him pretty uncomfortable. And this game right here is just kind of one of the reasons that I wasn't sold on the Chargers being a contender, because I just felt like they were going to run out of juice at some point. No team, I think, could use a bye week like the Chargers could use a bye week right now. Maybe they get back out there with Omarion Hampton, a rested team, finishing off a month and a half of the season, and they close out strong. They still got some divisional games left. I don't think they're completely out of the division yet because of that win that they already have over Denver. They'd probably have to beat Denver the next time they play them as well. I still think LA is a playoff team, and this game didn't really change much about how I feel about these teams. And maybe that's unfair to Jacksonville, but would you trust the Jags in a playoff game at this point in time? I don't think I would. I think it was just a bad day for the Chargers. 1:00 game, West Coast to East Coast, and they desperately needed a bye week. And for the Jags, I mean, good for them to show some fortitude and bounce back. Says to me something at least about Liam Cohen, but they're just not a team I still don't believe in them. I still won't. In what was a really entertaining game, and to many the game of the weekend, the Los Angeles Rams pick up the 21-19 victory over the Seattle Seahawks. I got a lot of thoughts on this game. More on the Seattle side, if I'm being honest. So let's talk about the Rams. I think that the Rams right now are the best team in football. I really do. They're 8-2 at this point in time. Matthew Stafford's having an MVP level season. Seattle's defense is ruthless, and Stafford didn't turn the ball over against them. 15-28 for only 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. They, in the second half, they really started to make Stafford uncomfortable, really starting in the second quarter. Puka was the only consistent option, 7 for 75 on 8 targets. Devontae Adams had 8 targets too, but had 1 catch for 1 yard and 1 touchdown. Devontae had a couple drops in that game that aren't necessarily concerning because it is just a regular season game, and the Rams did come away with a victory, but they're going to need more crisp play out of him come playoff time. Kyron Williams, I thought, was the MVP of the game for the Rams. I felt like he had a lot of big runs for them, was really eating and picked up points when they needed him. And those 3 touchdowns, those efficient 3 touchdowns, was enough. And the Rams defense was really good. They didn't have any sacks in this game. It felt like they had a lot of pressures. How many QB hits did they have, man? Only 8 pass deflections though, and of course they had 4 interceptions. They were ball hawking. It felt like they were getting Darnold under pressure, and we'll transition into talking about Seattle here. If you were to guess the 2 reasons that the Seahawks season would go off the rails, the number 1 guess would have been Sam Darnold turns into nightmare Sam Darnold, where when pressure gets to him, he gets nervous, gets scatterbrained, and can become turnover happy and try and force things. And that happened in this game. And I know, what was it, Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, somebody on the Seattle defense went to the podium and was like, we wouldn't be where we're at without Sam. So anybody that's got a problem with Sam, like, F you. And I get it. That's your teammate. You want to say what you want to say. You're not going to put it all on Sam. 2 things could be true. Seattle would not be at 7-3 right now if it wasn't for how good Sam Darnold has played this season. Coming into this game, he was an MVP candidate. There's no doubt about it. He's playing great football. The truth of the matter is, a game that you lose by 2 points, that your defense plays as well as it played, you have over 100 rushing yards, and your quarterback throws 4 interceptions and 0 touchdowns, he is the one to blame. That is also fair. That is fair game. It just is what it is. So that worries me. Another thing that worries me a little bit is Mike Macdonald. And I think Mike Macdonald's a great coach. And his defense is going to be lights out, I think, anywhere he goes, any amount of talent he has. This guy can build a strong defense that is a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. But now he's a head coach. And when you're a head coach, you got to make decisions. And I felt like he settled for 3 a little bit too much. The end of the first half, when he settled for that field goal, I thought that was a really bad choice. I thought we saw the Patriots a week ago versus Tampa Bay benefit from going for it and being aggressive on 4th down there, getting that touchdown to go up at halftime and feel good about themselves. A touchdown to Seattle could have tied the game. I felt like they punted late when they didn't need to. And I just felt like they were very conservative in this game. And the Rams, on their first touchdown score of the game with Kyron, they had gone for it on 4th down. And when you are playing the best of the best competition-wise, you cannot trade 7 for 3. And in the first half, that's what Seattle did. They traded 7 for 3 multiple times. And I think that'll kill you. JSN was fantastic. He's a top 5 receiver in the sport. No doubt about it. Do I think that this is going to completely derail Seattle or Darnold's season? No, I do not. I think you could make a case that these are the 2 top teams in the NFC, and I think many would agree that these were 2 of the top 3 teams in the NFC. And the Rams only won by 2. Seattle had a field goal at the end, a 61-yarder that Myers missed, but they could easily have won 22-21, and we could be talking about this game a different way of Seattle's defense stayed so strong in that game, gave them multiple opportunities. Darnold struggled, but this team is so good that they found a way to win. We could be talking about it that way. We're not. And again, I think Seattle's got a top 10, top 5 defense in the sport. JSN's fantastic. Darnold has played good virtually all year. Bad time for a disaster game, but it is what it is. But the Darnold disaster in high leverage spots with pressure getting to him is going to be a worry now, because we saw it at the end of last year versus the Vikings and then versus the Rams in the playoffs. Now we're seeing it again versus the Rams. And Mike Macdonald's lack of aggressiveness on going for it on 4th down on the offensive side against high-level competition, those things worry me. Hell of a win by the Rams, though. Hell of a win by what I believe is the best team in football. We had another NFC West battle that saw the 49ers pick up a 41-22 victory over the Arizona Cardinals. Brock Purdy came back and he looked freaking fantastic, man. This is the level of play that I was kind of talking about for weeks here with San Francisco of like, we'll see where the defense shakes out, but this offense has been incredibly efficient with a backup quarterback. Kittle had missed time. Pearsall had missed time. Purdy, like he was out and they were still firing. I thought, there was like the little bit of like, oh, who's better, Purdy or Mac Jones going around? And I was like, yeah, Purdy's definitely better. Is he $55 million a year better? I don't know, but he's certainly better. And the team offensively against what I consider to be a pretty decent Arizona Cardinals defense really ran up the score in this one, 41 points, great coaching all around. Solid stuff. The Niners defense still, I question it because Jacoby Brissett, man, he broke the NFL record for most completions in a game. So there's your trivia question of the future, man. Who holds the record for most completions ever in an NFL game? It's freaking Jacoby Brissett. 47 of 57 for 452 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, a 96.8 passer rating. Michael Wilson in it came out this week. Marvin Harrison Jr. appendicitis, had to get his appendix removed. Michael Wilson, you're up to being wide receiver 1, 15 for 185. McBride was 10 for 115. Dortch was 6 for 66 and a touchdown. So again, like you're able to move the ball on this Niners team, but you better be more efficient than them offensively. And it's going to be a tough sledding, man. And I don't think the Niners are a Super Bowl level team this year, but you get that defense right and get another draft going. And all of a sudden in 2026, man, San Francisco could be right back in that mix. And if the Cardinals get a better quarterback, holy smokes, that NFC West looks freaking loaded for next year. The Baltimore Ravens, man, they're back to 500, 5-5 after a 1-5 start. They've won 4 in a row, 23-16 in Cleveland, a 13-0 fourth quarter to win the game. I didn't think Lamar played particularly great. The first interception in this game, definitely not on him. That's on Keaton Mitchell. You could argue about the second one. Derrick Henry, he was back to normal. That Mark Andrews touchdown on like the fake spin around tush push. I didn't know Mark Andrews had freaking wheels like that, man. Zay Flowers was pretty solid in this game. For the Ravens, I don't think there's much of a story here. Kyle Hamilton was decent. They had 3 sacks in this game. The fucking Browns had 5 and 4 of them were by Myles Garrett. What a freak. We'll talk about them in a second. But Baltimore, it felt like they slept a little bit through the first half of this game, knew that they had to turn it on in the second half and won. Dylan Gabriel gets concussed, Shador Sanders comes in, and I've never seen a team that looks like they had 5 quarterbacks on their roster to open up the preseason and not one of them's good. But Shador didn't look good. Dylan Gabriel hasn't looked good. Judkins, he looks good, but everybody's like, yeah, we'll just stack the box. And if Dylan Gabriel or Shador could throw, I guess best of luck to you. The Browns are in such a weird spot because they're a 2-8 team, but I do like a lot of their talent, man. I think their defense is really solid. I think we saw it in this game because I do think that Baltimore is a strong team. I just think the Browns defense made them uncomfortable, man. And Myles Garrett, he's up to 15 sacks now, and like he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year again. And he's just such a monster of a human being that like he deserves it, absolutely. But man, I would just love to know what Cleveland would be like with a middle of the pack quarterback. Just one of these years. All right, a massive game, man. The Denver Broncos defeat the Kansas City Chiefs 22-19. Denver moves to 9-2 in full control of the AFC West right now. Kansas City falls to 5-5. Where's the story to start with this? Denver. Let's start with Denver. Denver won. Let's give them their flowers. They're 6-0 at home now. Bo Nix, 24 of 37, had a solid game. I said that for the Broncos to win this game that I thought Bo Nix had to be solid for 4 quarters. I don't know if he was good, but he was solid, man. 300 yards, didn't turn the ball over against a good Kansas City defense. Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, Courtland Sutton. The wide receiver trio combined for, 220 yards. Really solid stuff from them. I would like to see the Broncos kind of rely a little bit more on Courtland Sutton and a little bit less on Troy Franklin. Treat Courtland Sutton like the wide receiver 1 that he is. The run game without J.K. Dobbins, I don't know if it's going to be a struggle because Kansas City has a really solid run defense, so it's tough to tell, but it looked like it might be a bit of a struggle, but Denver battled through, and they got enough plays out of their offense to win the game. The defense was obviously super strong, man. 8 quarterback hits, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. They got a decent amount of penalties on Kansas City. I actually want to pull that up and look at the team stats here. Penalties. I mean, Denver had 10 penalties for 147 yards and still won this game. They gave Kansas City an extra 100 yards in penalties and still beat them. Like, they thoroughly outplayed them to have that happen, man. I didn't even realize it was that bad. I don't know if you could tell that I'm realizing that in real time, but I thought Mahomes and Kelsey, like, they looked like Mahomes and Kelsey, but there's just something about this Chiefs team, man. I thought coming out of the bye that this team was going to have their shit together. And if you had told me, if you had just showed me this Denver box score without who won the game and without touchdowns showing and said, this is what we got, I would have told you Kansas City won this game. And at 5-5, Kansas City's kind of in trouble. Am I going to sit here and predict them to miss the playoffs? No. But they're going to have to go on the road for every playoff game. There's some strong defenses that they're going to have to face. Kareem Hunt had 59 yards in this game, but the offense is clearly one-dimensional, clearly Patrick Mahomes dependent. And while I thought the offensive line was decent in this game, you could still get pressure. And outside of Travis Kelce in this game, I mean, Rashee Rice had 6 catches, but none of them downfield. They just don't. I like Worthy, but they don't seem to have a field-stretching threat. And you can keep everything underneath, and as long as you're a secure tackling defense, it's going to be real hard for Kansas City to pick up yards on you, no matter how good Mahomes is. And some of the times, man, Mahomes, he's been a little inaccurate on those deep throws this year. For the first time this season, I'm really questioning what Kansas City could be in a Super Bowl aspect. Because this is a game that in years past, Kansas City wins. Patrick Mahomes got the ball, tie game, 4 minutes to go. And I even tweeted it out at the time. What's going to happen? He gave Mahomes the ball with 4 minutes to go in a tie game. And then it was incompletion, beg the refs for a penalty on a sack. Denver outplayed him. And Denver deserved this win. And Denver, with that defense, is freaking dangerous. And Kansas City, 0-5 now this year in one-score games. They were 11-0 in them last year. A massive pendulum swing. And then Sunday Night Football, man. Full reaction to this is live on the channel, so I'll keep it short, keep it sweet. You've already been watching for 40-plus minutes. The Eagles, their defense is a top 3 unit in football now with Jalen Phillips. That addition, the defensive line for Philly, Phillips, Carter, Davis, Nolan Smith, Jalex Hunt, Brandon Graham, Moro Ojomo. It's a loaded unit, and it made frickin' Jared Goff uncomfortable all game, but they've had 2 weeks now in a row of post-trade deadline, post-bye week, looking like a tank of a unit and a legit Super Bowl level defense. The offense, not quite there. I saw some things that I liked, man. A.J. Brown's involvement, 11 targets, 7 receptions. Like, those are the numbers you want to see. The wins in this game were pretty bad, so maybe some of the deep balls were affected. It felt like it was that way for both quarterbacks. Philly plays Dallas next week, so that offense has to, like, if the offense doesn't hum against Dallas, then I'm going to question it. But 8-2, number 1 seed in the NFC, beat the Rams, beat the Bucks, beat the Lions, beat the Packers, beat the Chiefs. It feels to me like Philly is finding their stride, and even before then, they were 8-2. Last year, I felt like Philly was the clear-cut best team in the NFL, and they showed it in their playoff run. They showed it in the Super Bowl. I don't feel that way this time. It's not to say that I don't think that they could get back to the Super Bowl, because I think that they could, and they're in a prime spot to be the 1 seed in the NFC and make the playoffs, go through Philadelphia. But they're not the caliber team that they were last year. They got 2 months to figure it out offensively. They have figured it out defensively. For Detroit, this is the exact game you get worried about when Jared Goff's your quarterback. Cold weather, real pass rush. What does Jared Goff do? He didn't play great. And it's not even necessarily on him, because the offensive line didn't help him out. and neither did the run game. Wasn't existent. Jahmyr Gibbs in the receiving game, fantastic. For Detroit, I still think that they're a good enough team to be a playoff team, and I think they're even good enough to win the NFC North. I don't think that they're a Super Bowl level team. I've kind of said that for some time now. I feel like when they get down in games, it feels like 7 points is 20 points. It feels really hard for them to come back down 1 score and 2 scores. You almost got them knocked out, basically. We'll see if Dan Campbell can figure some things out and get this team kind of where they need to be. I have my skepticism. The pass rush outside of Aiden Hutchinson is hit or miss. The run game against the top tier defenses hasn't been there this year. You know, I think they're really missing Ben Johnson there with his concepts, because you see it succeeding in Chicago, but you know, week 1 versus Green Bay against a strong defensive line, couldn't run the ball. This game versus Philly, strong defensive line, couldn't run the ball. Jared Goff is good. He's not elite. You can't put everything in Goff's hands. Or else you get a game like this, man. So Detroit at 6-4. I think that they're technically out of the playoffs right now. Are they? Let's see if we can pull this up here. Yeah, they are. Technically, Detroit's out of the playoffs right now. So, pretty weird stuff. I just yapped for over 45 minutes about week 11. It was really, really fun. If you made it this far in the video, I really do appreciate your support. Hit the like button for me. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already. And I will catch you next time. Peace.